Have you ever wondered what separates a junior engineer from a senior engineer? Well, in this video, we're going to be talking about the key differences between a junior and a senior. I always thought that you had to be in the field for 20 plus years and have all of these different things, but you don't. And today we're going to go into what those things are, help you level up your career and get to that senior status. Get into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about, of course, is the technical skills. What is the difference between a junior and their technical skills, a senior and their technical skills? And you might initially think, well, they just write code better. It's more than that. With a junior engineer, usually when you first start, you are just learning the fundamentals, the basics of working in a code base with many different people and just really getting your tasks, understanding your task, finishing your task, and essentially, working on a feature. You're basically focused on just getting it done, right? On the other hand, a senior most of the time is looking at the bigger picture of how their code or their implementation of code is actually affecting the larger system and making the system work better efficiently or optimizing it. So a good way to think about this is usually the junior is thinking, let me just finish this feature, whereas the senior is thinking more about maintaining the code, documenting the code clearly in case anybody has to, come behind them and fix it while they're out or anything like that. And then also scalability. How is this going to look in 6 to 9 months down the line? Whereas a junior is just stuck in the, I need to get this done and I need to figure this out right now. So the next thing is actually how they problem solve as well as debug their code. So for juniors, most of the time, you're just trial by fire. So you're just in there, just going away, having at it, trying to figure out what's wrong with this code, Googling, ChatGPT, all of these different things, right? However, a senior, on the other hand, is actually having a more structured approach, focused on things like, the root cause analysis, using different, logging and monitoring tools to kind of build a system to actually debugging their code. Whereas that junior is kind of just going in there, Googling, and just trying to figure things out, trying one line of code, deleting it, trying another line, making some changes. It's really just trial and error for a lot of juniors, whereas seniors, they will make errors as well, but they have a system to kind of catch their errors, kind of offload that and automate that thinking or that trial and error by thinking of it in advance. So they have a more streamlined way of debugging their code. So one example of this is the difference between a junior and a senior. If you see a, database error, the junior might be thinking, how do I fix this right now? They're not thinking about the root cause. They're thinking about what's the easiest way to fix this. And normally that's going to be, let me switch it on and off. Let me restart the server, right? And see if that fixes it. Whereas the senior is thinking a little bit more, ahead. And they're thinking, this could be something like an index issue or some other technical issue. I already have a idea of what it could be, rather than the junior that is just restarting the server because they just hope that it works, right? That's the key difference. So let's get into the next one. The next thing is actually going to be communication and collaboration. When it comes to a junior, you're just fighting to survive at this point. So you're just worried about getting your requirements, getting your PR or whatever it is, and you're just your ticket or whatever you want to call it. And you're just working on your feature and kind of, you're asking for clarification on what you're trying to do. And if you were to try to explain what you're trying to do, you might stumble and struggle on how to actually explain that to someone who may be a non-technical person. Where on the other hand, not only is a senior a contributor to a project, they're also a collaborator. So most of the time they're speaking with different stakeholders, both technical and non-technical, or somewhere in between, right? They might have some business to do with some data analytics department and then HR, and they might be building different things there, but they're able to explain their thoughts more simply to these non-tech or even tech users, but just aren't in the same realm as software engineering. That's really a good thing to work on, is your communication skills, because it can take you a long way even into getting jobs and other things like that. So if you are someone who is an introvert like myself, work on those communication skills, and those alone can get you a long way. Not necessarily is it always a promotion, but it can just be to up your learning, right? You may have a senior, or you may have somebody that you would like to learn from, but you're too scared to actually approach them or talk to them or whatever it may be, and that could be limiting your progress, right? That's what I've learned in my career, is talk to different people that come through many different walks of life, that have worked in different companies, that have done different things, and you're kind of that melting pot that could take all of these ideas and kind of use them for your good and for your progress. So collaboration amongst, stakeholders, whether that be technical or non-technical, people on your team, just work on communication and collaborating with others, and you're on a good way to getting that senior role. So another thing for the differences of a junior and a senior is going to be ownership and responsibility. So a lot of the time when beginning as a junior, you are very task oriented. You just want to focus on getting your instructions, completing your tasks, and learning as you go. It's very straightforward. You're just getting your feet wet, and you're just trying to, basically you're trying to survive. You're trying not to get fired. However, on the other hand, a senior really takes control and takes ownership of the project or feature as a whole. And what I mean by that is they are not only getting their code done or their feature done, they're also implementing different things within it to kind of really wrap the gift with a bow, as you would say. They're doing documentation, maybe writing automated tests, and really having a full package when they're submitting a code fix or a feature. They're building like a whole product around just their code, because that's kind of like it's almost like a brag, I guess, right? It's like, I made this and it doesn't fail, and it does, because I built all these things around it. Whereas a lot of times juniors are just, does it work? Okay, that's it, as long as it works. So that's one of the key differences as well. Trying to be essentially, I would say a simpler version is seniors are a lot more proactive in fixing bugs or anything that could possibly, edge cases, any type of thing that may happen. A very simple example, a junior may think of grabbing user input, and that's it, that's the task. Whereas a senior may think, okay, let's grab user input, but what are the possibilities of somebody adding a number when I'm expecting a string, or things like that. It's a very simple example, just so everybody can actually, understand what's going on. But in the grand scheme of things, that's the difference between the junior and the senior, and what they're kind of thinking about when they are building out their feature. So you may be thinking, how do I get from junior to senior? Or if you haven't started, how do I get from beginner to senior, right? And I got a couple steps that you can take that will help you get there. You just have to keep on going. All right. So the first one is you're going to build your foundational knowledge. You're not only going to learn how to code, you're going to understand why things work and why they don't, how they work, and what are some reasons why things wouldn't work. All right. That's the first thing. The next thing is you have to start thinking long term. So instead of just thinking about, okay, I'm going to finish my one thing here, you got to think a couple steps in advance. You have to think about, I need to put tests in place. I need to, do some type of error checking. I need to look forward to the next 6 months. I need this to be able to scale. I need this to be able to be maintained by others. And you need to start thinking in the future about the system as a whole, rather than just the right now code, right? Because then you just eventually end up building band-aids on band-aids. Then you have a whole mess of code, right? So start thinking about the future when you're doing your projects. Don't get too caught up in that, especially if you're new, but start thinking about the future, how things can be maintained, scaled, that type of thing. Next thing is take ownership of your tasks. Don't just go beyond just doing the task. Go, how does my work impact the larger system? How can I make sure that my code is not the one messing up the system, right? Or the feature or whatever it may be. How do I make sure that I have all my ducks in a row so that way, you know, things are, you can't account for everything, but you can sure try to account for most things, edge cases, things that you wouldn't expect, and that will just make your code look pristine. All right, another thing is focus on your communication skills. Please, this is really what can set you apart from the rest. Being able to communicate your ideas or, you know, your code or whatever feature you need to implement, being able to speak with stakeholders, even if you're freelancing clients, being able to articulate very well on what you are doing in non-tech terms, because at the end of the day, the client doesn't care if you use these new frameworks or these new, you know, packages or whatever. They don't care. They just want what they ask for, and they want it to work well without any bugs. That's what they want. And another thing is always continue to improve. If you're already working as a junior, go and network and try to really get close to those seniors and really pick their brain about how they think about things, what they think about, why they think about it that way, and experiences that they've had. And this is just going to 10x your journey, because when I was coming up, I didn't have a mentor or somebody to essentially ask these questions to, and I would have been a lot further than I am right now. But it is what it is. You have this opportunity, so take control and seek feedback from people who have been in your shoes and have went, you know, further than you have. So that's another thing. So nobody starts out as a senior. It's a journey. It's going to take time, practice, a lot of code, the right mindset. But with these habits we talked about today, you can definitely be well on your way to getting that senior role and getting that senior positions and kind of leveling up through there. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more tips like this, so we can get you writing more code, better code, and getting your first job or leveling up your software engineering career. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I'm out.